Welcome back, my fellow SG-1 fans. This next episode is probably a good example of what will become our baseline standard. Not every single one of these will have huge consequences or impacts on the future story, but they are almost all a fun little adventure with our favorite Air Force recon team. We do meet one of my favorite characters in all of SG-1, Dr. Janet Fraser, played by the amazing Teal'c. Dr. Fraser starts off as just a recurring side character, but will end up with some pretty major plot lines down the road. No spoilers in the comments either. She is perfect, and nothing bad will ever happen to her. I am Dr. Ursa, and this is my continued review of every episode of Stargate SG-1. Let's run through Episode 5. The Broca Divide. We begin with our crew undergoing a briefing from General Hammond explaining why they are going on the current mission, and it's another address that they've been able to extrapolate from the Abydos cartouche. We see that SG-3, an all-Marine Corps squad, is ready to back them up on this mission to a seemingly dark world. Like physically dark, they will be going in with night vision goggles. Jack orders the Marines to follow behind in order to avoid any excess violence right away. SG-1 is then ambushed on the other side of the gate by primitive natives, but are thankfully rescued by SG-3 a few moments later. We see that the attackers were human, and then cut to the intro. I'm gonna make my own Stargate-style intro, just y'all wait. Daniel speculates that the people of this planet are some type of early human, but is unsure of the specifics. People in white robes are seen attacking the natives with rocks and slings in order to scare them away. They introduce themselves as the Untouched and assume that the SG teams are gods since they came through the gate. Jack begins his lifelong journey of attempting to show people that the humans of Earth are not divine, just advanced, at least in comparison to most of the people that they meet. There will be outliers to that later. They are led back to the Land of Light, a part of the planet where the sun always shines. And that's the main gimmick of this world, in that it's locked in orbit with one side in perpetual darkness and the other bathed in constant light. Don't ask any questions on how this would affect the ecosystem, because the episode does not get into this at all. The Chancellor explains that the primitive folks in the woods are known as the Touched, and they consider it a curse that strikes people down, who are then banished to the woods due to their primitive nature. Since there are no sign of the Goa'uld on this world, Jack is ready to call it quits and head back home. Daniel gets a little salty over this early departure and missed opportunity to study early forms of human society. Once they're back at the base and debriefing, one of the Marine lieutenants loses his cool and attacks Teal'c as he gives one of his most badass lines in the show.
General, I would prefer to not hurt this man.
We then see two men fall through a window into the gate room, and clearly something is wrong at the SGC. Sam is seemingly affected next, and we see her trying to seduce Jack aggressively, and things get a little more violent than either party probably wanted. We meet Dr. Janet Fraser and see her taking charge of the treatment of multiple patients, all showing similar symptoms. We see that the more advanced cases are starting to revert into a caveman-like state similar to the people back on P3X-797. Jack gets a little aggressive towards Daniel when he expresses concern for Sam, showing that he's also starting to fall victim to the disease. He kind of kicks Daniel's ass real quick in the process too. Dr. Fraser is starting to understand the disease, but not enough to wipe it out yet. This leads General Hammond to take the responsible approach of locking down the mountain, and they do at least a decent job with quarantine protocols over the course of this series. We get to see Colonel O'Neill screaming like a fucking velociraptor, and things look bleak overall though. This leads to Hammond making the hard call and recommending to the President that they set up a second line of defense with orders to shoot anyone trying to leave and immediately burn their body. Teal'c and Daniel are both showing a lack of the disease in their blood, Teal'c due to Junior, and currently unknown reasons for Daniel. This leads to them being sent back through the gate to get blood samples from the Untouched in order to try and learn more about this illness. We see one of the Untouched from earlier, Malosha, and see that she has succumbed to the Touched curse. Daniel is then taken by several of these Touched due to his desire to save this girl at all costs. Heroic, but not the best decision overall. General Hammond has also succumbed to the disease, and we see him being housed with the semi-conscious O'Neill, who still has enough of himself left to try and request more sedatives. This had to be one of those fun episodes to act in, sort of getting to act like an ape or a caveman and making faces and noises. Jack is able to break through and tries to volunteer himself for experimentation so that they can look for a cure. Dr. Fraser's not quite on board with this and thinks their situation isn't that extreme, and they should wait for Teal'c and Daniel to return from the planet. Teal'c makes contact with the Untouched and tries to explain that it is not a curse, but a disease. The Untouched are not willing to attempt to rescue, and their simple understanding of medicine also leads them to denying Teal'c's request for blood samples. Thankfully, he's willing to do what it takes and knocks out a couple of the guards to take some samples. He returns to the SGC and talks to Jack, who is still showing some signs of resisting the disease. This leads Dr. Fraser to discover that the disease is targeting histamines, and thus people that take regular allergy medicine like herself and Daniel are effectively immune. Benadryl for the win! Jack is used as the prototype for this cure, and despite a small moment of confusion with Teal'c due to his lack of pop culture knowledge, Jack is released and a proven success for the treatment. We see everyone suiting back up, and there's probably a general agreement to never discuss these events again. Multiple SG teams are seen being sent through the gate with tranquilizer guns in order to rescue Daniel and distribute a cure. We get this funny little moment of Daniel having gone full feral, again, and Jack even picks on his friend for being the regular lady killer.
Daniel, you dog. Keep this up, you'll have a girl on every planet.
SG-1 brings Daniel to the Untouched in order to prove the cure works, and once they witness his recovery, they get excited about the return of all their loved ones. Our heroes from Earth offer to share their knowledge, and that is always one of my favorite aspects of the show. There's something to be said about the secrecy of the Stargate program on Earth, but they really do not try to keep stuff from these disparate groups of humans that have fallen a bit behind. Sam tries to apologize, and we see Jack demonstrate this willful ignorance while also gently ribbing his teammate a little bit as the credits roll. I love the camaraderie between this team, and it's one of the reasons we all look back on this series so fondly. So episode 5 was some pretty basic stuff at the end of the day, neither too offensive or too boring. I do promise that the show continues to get better as we go, and I suggest you look at these early episodes as the character-building teenage years of the whole thing. We all went through an awkward phase, and I guess that applies to long-running TV shows as well. Hopefully these review videos will continue to mature and attract both new and old fans alike, just like SG-1. The Broca Divide might not go down in history as a standout episode, but we will hear references to these characters and location in the future. P3X797, the Land of Light, will eventually become a refuge for many displaced groups, and like I mentioned earlier, Dr. Fraser becomes almost part of the main cast in the episodes ahead. This does make me consider doing a separate video on my favorite TV/sci-fi doctors out there, and Janet Fraser is right up there with the emergency medical hologram from Voyager for me. Side note, Robert Picardo will make an appearance later on in this series, just one of many seasoned sci-fi actors to show up at some point. Thanks for watching so far, and an extra special thank you to everyone watching all of this review series. SG-1 means a lot of things to a lot of people, and I really do enjoy hearing feedback from other fans. Let me know what you think about this episode down in the comments, and if you don't have any strong opinions, then just tell me what episode you're looking forward to the most. All likes and engagement help. Please consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. I'm considering cashing in some PTO at work to try and get ahead on a few episodes. Either way, I thank you for any and all of your time. I've been Dr. Ursa, and until next time, take care.